Session is being recorded, and I'll start by introducing Todd to you, and Todd will take it forward from there. All right. So, so Todd is going to talk on technical delivery and expanded role for technical communicators. In this session, Todd will discuss some of the issues with people not receiving or knowing about documentation updates and how the technical communicator can help take their content further downstream to ensure that users are getting it in a timely fashion. You'll learn how to find potential communication gaps in your documentation delivery chain, identify your stakeholders and readers, and better report on your work. Finally, Todd will show examples and discuss ways to deliver your content more directly so that your users have quicker awareness and better access to the content you produced. The topics discussed in this session are based on the findings and recommendations in the published October 2015 STC Intercom magazine article titled Technical Delivery and Expanded Role for Technical Communicators. Now, something about Todd. He has over 15 years of experience as a senior level technical writer, documentation specialist, and technical communication department manager with a Master of Technical and Scientific Communication degree. His background includes graphic design, editing, client communication, process and procedures, and software development documentation. He has worked as a lone writer and worn many hats, leading various projects that intersect and serve a variety of audiences. He's an active senior member of the Society for Technical Communication and is in the conference chair of the 2016 STC Summit in Anaheim. Other recent activities include president of the Philadelphia Metro Chapter and members of the Community Affairs Committee outreach team. He also speaks and presents at regional and national STC conferences. He is currently on the STC 2016 election ballot for director. I had the privilege of meeting Todd in Columbus last year, and I look forward to a very interesting webinar. Over to you, Todd.
Okay, thank you. Wow, that's a great introduction. I appreciate it. Yeah, hi, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining today. I'll be walking through what was described as far as the session about technical delivery and going through that. This presentation, again, this is based on a published article recently that has gotten some good feedback, and I'd like to kind of share it with you, and I hope expand and provide some opportunities and examples that you can carry into your own organizations. So we'll go ahead and get started on the next slide, please. Okay, great. So why are we here? So this technical delivery function and expanding the role, what I'm trying to do and hope that I can influence or give you guys, everybody, an idea is, we're always looking for ways that as technical communicators or technical writers or whatever our titles are, to expand our reach in the company, because we want to go further where we can, because sometimes we can get placed in areas and we want to expand our reach. And one of those ways is, of course, getting closer to not just our partners in the organization, but also working to get closer to customers. And what I'll do is, showing through later is an example of something that led from a broader internal reach and then expanded into a reach that got closer to clients, which, became more valuable. And as a result of that, by expanding the reach, you're also able to try to increase your influence. And the way to really do that, and what a lot of this boils down to, is finding ways that you can provide more service in your organization and do things that really help others in the company and make their job easier, or make it easier for them to work with other people or to provide information. And that's really what a lot of this is about. But kind of walking through some of the ideas, I'm hoping that what I talk about is something that maybe you've seen in your organizations, and I'd love to get a little feedback in a couple places where I'll stop to, see if you have questions. So next slide, please. So real briefly, of course, I'm TechCom Todd is the name I go by as nickname within STC. So we already went through all the things I've been leading for a while, working with the summit, along with Rajdeep. We're also on the director candidates as well. So, and we did have the privilege of meeting next. That maybe I'll get the opportunity to see some of you at the STC Summit in Anaheim. Next slide, please. Unless you want to keep looking at my picture, but I don't think you would. Not today, too. So what was the reason for this technical delivery thing? How did this kind of come about? Well, it really boiled down to that there was a problem in the organization. It wasn't a serious problem, but this is something you may relate to in your company. And the people that we work with documentation didn't always know when the documentation was updated or created. The team that I manage, a small team of technical writers, aren't usually responsible for sharing or providing content broadly or to customers. We usually give it to the few people, project leaders, or other stakeholders internally, and then it's their responsibility to share it more broadly with other people. So basically, it meant that our TechCom team was dependent on other people to kind of notify people and customers and share links to the documentation that the team was producing. Next slide, please. So just real briefly, is this something that the attendees, any of you guys, have kind of seen in your companies? Have you had issues where you update or produce documentation and then you get questions about it later, wondering where it is, or people have trouble finding it? Feel free to enter a couple of things in the chat so everyone can kind of see that, and we'll just talk briefly. But I know I've seen it in all the companies I work with, so I'm hoping that this is something that resonates with you. Great. So see Deepak and Nisha, and I apologize if I mispronounce your names. Kiran May. Yeah. So I'm glad that this is something that other people have had similar kinds of problems with. So we'll go on, and hopefully I'll have a couple good ideas and some solutions for you to take back by the end of this talk. So next slide, please. So basically, we knew there was a bit of a problem. So we, like anything for, basic problem solving, we decided that, well, we wanted to look into it a little bit further, and we were going to research the problem. And the first thing we did was we talked to our stakeholders. And basically, this was an informal bit of research, talking to the people that we normally would email and supply the information. Say, hey, are you getting the message? Are you providing it? Learn a little bit more about what their processes were, so we could understand where we might be able to help. And then, more practically, we also checked the content locations where we were posting the documentation. We wanted to make sure that the material that was out there was accessible, and so that it could be copied and downloaded by people who would try to go out and get this. That would include people that were internal to the company, to grab documentation, and also we have a client portal site, SharePoint, that clients can access. So what we really did was we checked permissions and made sure that people could get out there and that those things were working and people could get to those directories, because we thought that maybe part of the problem was people were getting errors or didn't have permission to download things, but it turns out that that was okay. And we also made sure that the links we were providing to people to go get content, because we don't like to use attachments if we can help it, that they weren't breaking, that they were still working and going to the documents that we expected them to go to. So that was really kind of our first step towards learning a little bit more about what was happening there. Next slide, please. All right, so what did we learn? Well, we learned that our writers produce good, timely content, don't we all? We're great. So, and we do a good job. We get our work done on time, and we get it delivered, and we give people the stuff. Sometimes it's right at the edge of a deadline, but often we have to be the ones that have to wait for everybody else to finish their work before we can do our part. So it wasn't a part on us getting the content on time, which was good. And we weren't looking to lay blame. We just wanted to find out where we could focus our energies on fixing the problems. But what we found out was that people weren't looking for the updates themselves, or they didn't know where content was posted. And this could have been because a lot of times we don't publish all the time, or it might have been weeks or months between major updates. And so people don't remember where things are stored or have the links to, they don't save bookmarks and remember where stuff is. So, when in an absence of people knowing, they kind of sometimes just either forget or just decide, I can't remember where it is. And so, excuse me, that can relate to people just, sending emails and things. And we also found out that other people and the stakeholders and clients weren't always alerted on a regular basis for where to find things. So basically, we had a communication gap. Next slide, please. So it was important. So we did our research and we found out there was a gap. So now we'd had to mind and fill the gap and look for ways that we could make kind of cross the threshold here. So we'll just pause for a moment and I'll ask, is this something that's you guys have found similar issue in your organizations?
Uh, Todd, one quick query. You're referring to as we. So how many people are we talking about here, and who are these? Are these the stakeholders, or could you just elaborate on that
Sure.
we part?
Yes, no, good question. So our team, the team that I manage, we document release materials for a large product. So um, we have internal stakeholders, which are a lot of the product team members, product managers, and other people that are connected to our clients, so client representatives, salespeople, and support, client support, and helplines. So those are that's our main internal audience. Our external audience is, like I mentioned, we post to a shared client portal directory. It's just a SharePoint site that's on the web that clients go to download and retrieve release notes and other materials for the product. So the company and customer representatives are our external audience.
Thanks, Todd.
And just to get an idea of numbers, there's probably internally about 100, 150 people. And then for clients, that could be a couple of hundred people, depending on how many people have access to the system.
Excellent. Let's hear what the others have to say. You can type your question in the chat box. Todd will have a look at it. And Todd, just keep an eye on the chat window. Thank you.
What is the domain? Does that mean what type of software or what kind of business? The product that we document is a mortgage lending house loan software that banks use. So we're a business. We do software for banks and lenders. That's our business, and they purchase our product to help manage people who buy mortgages for their houses. Just wait a moment to see if I hopefully answered the question. And I suspect this is something similar that you found in your org, but I think there's good ways to. But yeah, so this is the break to kind of ask that questions if you've had similar issues. Compliance states and counties. Oh, that's part of the development for our software. So we have in our company, which is lending and mortgage stuff, there are a lot of regulations and compliance issues, and they make sure that they account for all that in the design work and stuff. My team doesn't document that. A lot of that's in the specification things and what's shared with clients. We primarily do release documentation. But the software, we do have to make sure it does meet all those compliance um, issues. There was a big update the last year, so we do make sure the software does that. But so let's go ahead and move on and start getting to the meat of what we've kind of found out and what we decided to implement. So next slide, please. So we had to determine. So now we knew there was a gap in some of the problems that we had found. So kind of go with some requirements or what was what. So we knew what we would accomplish. Figure out how we were going to fix the problem and mind the gap that we found. So really, it boiled down to alerting others that to documentations. We needed to take a more active role in the process because our goal was we wanted to keep the audience informed and up to date, reasonably, so that they weren't hearing from us every couple of months and would forget about, thinking about documentation. They wouldn't remember where it was. So it was good to kind of keep a regular, schedule. And we also couldn't rely on, fortunately, we didn't want to leave full responsibility with other people who might have had those contacts. It was just it was too important to let people know that there were documentation updates available, and we wanted to make sure that we were helping push and absorb some of that communication responsibility. And we also wanted, part of this goal is, we wanted to get the TechCom team and the tech writers a little closer to the users and customers, because as we all know, the more we know about our audience and the users, and the closer we can get to those people to get feedback and to hear from them, and learn what their questions are and what they're asking about, the better work that we can do and service that we can provide to them. So that was kind of our framework for how we were going to approach the problem. Next slide, please. So what we came up with, and this was in collaboration with other people too. So we drafted and we prototyped a report that we call the product delivery report. And the key on this is delivery, because it was something that was going to be put into the hands of other people, not as a printed thing, but electronically put into the people's mailboxes so that they would kind of see it. So this became a new deliverable that our team decided to publish, something extra to help kind of pull things together. And to manage making sure that things were regular and kept up to date, it's something that we decided needed to be done about every week, because there are enough content, and this may vary depending on how much documentation and things that your teams produce, but we have releases, we do releases with clients, base and custom type releases just about every week almost. So it was important to kind of keep current with that. So a weekly schedule seemed to work out the best. If you do releases less frequently, you may go by every other week, or you think that's monthly. Um, can we go back just a moment? Sorry, Rajiv. The other, we'll go back one slide. So we wanted to do it regularly, and then we also wanted to make sure that it was sent directly to everybody, the staff. So during our research, we found out that people prefer getting email because, one, it's direct, and two, everybody sees it. Because what happens is if you try to post things to a website, a lot of people don't regularly visit websites or remember to check it every week. And we also, the other thing we want to do is make sure we had a broad distribution. So this was content that wasn't secret, that was, could be shared. So we wanted to make sure we got into as many people's hands and sent it to as many people as we could. Sorry, now next slide, please. So basically what we came up with is it's a report that we take and deliver and package up all the changes and things that we've done in the past week roughly, and we give it and deliver it to everybody directly. And that's kind of what became the product delivery report, which is our big deliverable there. So I'll pause for just a moment and see if you guys kind of have questions, if this sounding interesting to you, or if you do something like this. And I'll go into more specifics in a moment about what's in the report and show you an example available later too. I'll post it next week if you want a copy, or you can email. I see. Yes, I mean, that's some good feedback. Multiple groups. Yes, we kind of cater this. We do one product. It could be something where you can combine products. You might do this in collaboration with other groups, possibly, where they all contribute. That's kind of would be probably my suggestion is, this is a little bit new too, and in some ways it set a standard that we were able to kind of leverage it towards other things. Eventually in this report, other people started contributing stuff because they wanted to get their news out there as well. And what it did is it actually expanded. I didn't want to get to it into this presentation, but we started getting other reports from other people and project managers who wanted to give status and news. So what you can do is as you're preparing your reports or getting ready to kind of send out a weekly update, is you can poll some of the other managers or other teams possibly and go, hey, do you guys, what updates or changes have you guys done? Or what we do is we just go out and look at the website and just take a few moments and kind of look at all the new things and bring those into the report. And we don't even have to ask. We just kind of go out and get the stuff that's already posted and available and just bring it to light, so to speak, and make it more visible. Because other people may not be communicating the changes that they're making. So, yeah, I hope that's, we'll keep going a little bit more and then we'll open it up for even more questions. Glad I could help. So next slide, please. Yeah, so that's kind of getting to if you guys do anything similar. So we'll take a moment. I'll look in the chat. SharePoint as a repository. We do. So what we do, so we really email the report. So it is not an attachment. It's embedded in the email so that it's visible and it works on different devices. It's mainly just text with a graphic and links to documents. I'll show you an example of that. And then what we do is so for reference and archiving, we make a PDF version of that email with that information and content, and it preserves the links. And then we post it on the shared SharePoint site in a folder repository so that people can go out and get the weekly report if maybe, or someone wants to share it with somebody else, they could always forward the email, which is very flexible, but we do keep an archived copy. Good question. Yeah, very good question. Thank you. Someone's typing. We'll give it just a moment and then we'll kind of continue. I appreciate again everyone's time this evening. I'm glad everything was working out here and I could join you today. So we had a comment about setting alerts for stakeholders. Yes, I mean that's another good idea. So we do happen to use SharePoint, which has its own capabilities. We could probably have talks about that in itself. But what's nice is that you can provide instructions, and actually that's a good idea, to stakeholders to put alerts you can set alerts on folders so that when content gets added, they get an email. So that's another good way for people to be notified of changes. That's an excellent suggestion, Deepak. I appreciate that. So we'll go ahead and move on, and then we'll keep pressing on. Thank you. So what's in this report? So let's get down to it. If you I mentioned what our outlined specifically what's kind of in this email and what we make a PDF of and provide for archiving. So really it just includes a list of the recent document changes that have been made to internal and external depositories where we store new updated content. So sometimes we have updates to existing guides or manuals or documents that kind of get refreshed. So sometimes you may have to go back and add something or make a correction. Um, it's good to let people know that you've done that, because otherwise often the file name is the same, and unless they look or you share the modified date, they may not realize that a change was made to the file. So it's important to alert people about that. And of course, anything that's new is also on the report. And what we include in the basic linking, we don't get too detailed because people can go look, is it's really listed out, and we include a link. We include the date that the document was posted, so people get a sense of how fresh it was, and just a brief description that's a little bit more than what the file, if the file name isn't um, doesn't explain very well what the content is. And then with that listing, we link directly to the documents in SharePoint so that people can go and manage and go retrieve it themselves. Now this is all because some of this goes to customers and stuff. People can't get, by linking to it in the repositories where they're stored, all the permissions and things are managed by the system. So if someone gets the email and doesn't have access to the system with an account or credentials or the right permissions, they can't access the documents themselves. So that's another kind of safe reason to be using the email and linking to a location that's behind a secure location that people have to log into. So we don't say or do too much except provide links to the document. So even if an email or the report was shared with somebody, a competitor or some other source, there isn't really much risk. And of course, I should mention that when we were pulling all this together, we did prototype it and send examples to some of the decision makers and higher level executives and stuff. We kept them aware and in the loop of what we were doing. We made sure we had permission to do so. So I would definitely recommend that you work with people who would need to review and approve this before you send anything, and make sure that it works, that they're comfortable with the content, and who's going to be sending it. And it could be also where you end up preparing this report and somebody else sends you can help do most of the work for. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So here's a little bit of a sample. And again, I didn't have time because I was worried about the power issues over here during the storm right now. But what I will do too is, if you want samples of this, I have them. They're generic samples. I created them for this presentation so that it doesn't include any company information or real links to real documents. But it gives you a sense for what is in the reports. So the primary report we did is we call it the product delivery report. I had a graphic artist that's on our team in our company kind of create a little bit of a letterhead logo at the top, and it includes the date. It gets sent every week at the beginning of each week so that we capture the last week of changes. And we try to send it on a Tuesday, because what's nice about Tuesday is Monday is not a bad day, but a lot of people are pretty busy and don't, checking a lot of email. It can get lost. Usually on a Tuesday, the odds of someone seeing and opening the email are a little better. And then it's really simple. We just say, here's a report with the date, and we just list out the contents at the top. And we provide, what I mentioned is that other people started adding content to our news. It's almost like a little bit of a newsletter, but it's really a more basic report. Wanted to add news links, so we started adding news updates, but primarily the delivery and provides, and we include the links to those materials in the report. Next slide, please. And so I mentioned earlier that there was an expansion of this report, kind of led to some other deliverables and reports. So what happened is that original purple colored product delivery report was so well received and popular internally that folks were asking, well, can we do something like this for our clients? And we decided, sure, we can tailor it a little bit, and it's really very similar content it just goes to a little different audience, a different distribution group, that we made sure that we had the permission and the blessing of people who reviewed this and look at it before we decided to do this, because customers are a little more sensitive, because initially the report was internal only, and that was we made good progress on that, but eventually it expanded to where we made an external version where it only lists the files that are available in our client portal SharePoint site. So it's really almost the same report with a different header, and we take out the few pieces of internal links. So they're very similar. It only takes a few minutes of extra work, and we get to send similar information out to another broad audience. And we found that very helpful. So we'll go to the next slide, and we'll pause for a moment. See if you guys have questions. Single repository for all clients or individual clients. Good question. Our SharePoint site, the way it is structured in our company, there is a shared area which all clients can access, and that's where we post in the links that we provide. There are client-specific repositories and areas. We don't generally manage those. Usually with the way the company structured, there are different teams and client project leads that manage that work here. Most of this stuff is all basic stuff to shared for our base product that all clients get, which makes it a little easier. If it were all for each individual client and things, it would be a lot more overhead. It would be a lot more complex. So we kind of, eventually it might go to clients if they're a big client, but again, some of this is kind of new, but we kind of keep it towards everybody as a shared type thing. Hopefully that answers your question. Good question. The role of Marcom team. Well, there is no role for Marcom. So this is really comes from the TechCom team with the other product. Our marketing things in our organization are at a little bit of a higher level and are more broad. They do things like newsletters and other very broad kind of company-wide type correspondence and communications. Most of the other lower level client things are handled by different groups, and our team is sort of supporting and managing this part of it. But good question. Okay, so I'll briefly show the result, and then we can kind of talk about a couple other things. We're kind of hitting in the home stretch here. So basically, people really like the reports. Some of the things that, it makes their job easier. Everyone's kind of informed and current. One of the nice advantages from our side and from everybody else's side really, is that we get a lot fewer questions now about the status or location of documentation. So we don't have to answer emails because, communication isn't always the strongest area in a company about, what's going on and what people are doing. By sending this report, we're being very proactive about telling people what we're doing and when things are ready, because everything that's shared out there is free to go retrieve, and is free to ask about, well, is this something that's ready? Because if it's in the report, it is ready. So they can act upon the items when they see it, and it comes right to their mailbox. So, and from their perspective, they get regular and reliable updates from our team. So it becomes a predictable result on what they're going to receive. So some weeks the report's a little bit longer than other weeks. It depends on how much material was published or how many documentation updates were included. Sometimes the report includes other pieces of information of other content that was updated that other teams have produced. So we've kind of leveraged it to share not just what the tech writers and the TechCom team does, but what other teams do as well. And that's really increased the collaboration with other groups. It gets us connected, which we all I think sometimes have that struggle with trying to stay connected with other teams. And it really increases the visibility of the content that not just our team, but other teams are producing out there. So we found it very valuable. Next slide, please. So that's kind of, some of the benefits we've seen. I've got a few more, but I kind of wanted to take a pause and hopefully, what benefits do you guys see to something like this, possibly in your organization? To you or an opportunity? Just pause a moment, see if we get in the chat. Well, I hope the weather where you guys are, I'm sure you're spread out a bit. Everyone dialing in is nice, nice today. I don't know if you guys see much snow. We don't get lots of snow here, but we're getting a lot today. Yes, that's a good comment. Cross-functional visibility increases. Absolutely, for sure. That's a big benefit. Yeah. Yeah, so that seems to be one of the big things that's resonating with you guys, and that is one of the great things about this as well. It's getting other people, and this has been interesting. They come to us, and they come to our team to say, "Hey, we want to be part of this because it makes their job easier because then things are being pushed out to people to answer questions about it." So we found that to be one of the surprises. We knew that people would like and appreciate having information and being able to get to it, but we didn't realize, wow, it really cut back on the inquiries and the questions we got and other things. So um, it was really kind of a surprise. As you can see, it's not a lot of work um, to do that. Oh, good question. The rewriter's responsibility. They take turns each week. Currently, I have one of my writers that kind of does the initial pull of the content, and then I review it and double check it and look in a couple places and kind of clean it up to publish. Um, so it's really one person's responsibility. And we don't take turns. I've got a small team, but eventually I may do that. Um, I will mention that as far as sending it, so here's something I didn't cover. I'm going to make a note of this for future, is that these reports, so part of setting up this report is it is sent from a shared mailbox account. So these reports get sent, I said, by email. They get sent by, I was able to work with our IT department to and a news product news mailbox so that it comes from a shared account that doesn't have somebody's name on it. So it doesn't come from Todd, it doesn't come from tech writer Jane. It comes from an OS News email box. So when people see it, it comes from, oh, this is from the company, and it doesn't come from one individual person, um, which is handy. So that account is shared, so I can do it. I can give responsibility for someone else to send from that account. So questions and other things can be sent to that mailbox. So if somebody's out, they can address um, any concerns or things that come back. We don't get lots of feedback, so or questions from the reports because we kind of said it's more of a one-way thing, but it's nice that it doesn't come from someone's individual email. So if another department decides to take on the responsibility for this reporting or something down the road, it's much easier to make that transition. So hopefully that answers. That's a good question. So we have flexibility by setting up an email account to send these things and have multiple people that can use it to send or receive messages from it. So that was another change we kind of did to support this particular. So hopefully that answers a question. That's a good one. Yeah, management going up to get information. Yes, that's so that definitely all the main manager leads and other people are included in this. So they do have and they're informed of the information too, which is nice because a lot of times what gets sent by people, whether it's your team or somebody else, they send it really to just only the direct recipients. And it's nice to keep managers and other people in the organization informed about what's being published and where they can go get it because oftentimes customers and stuff will ask them questions and they may not know and have to find out about it. So, yeah, that's a good one. And we'll move on to the next slide here in a moment and start kind of working to wrap up and see if you guys have other questions. Yes, a good point. You can definitely be planning, and what's nice is you can really get your message out, and it's flexible. You can kind of add other pieces of information. So we'll move on to the next slide, please. So just real briefly, I wanted to kind of see what you guys were thinking, but some of the other real tangible benefits from, doing this reported that is, it's definitely added value and service from the technical communication team. So we have a better reputation now and a little different reputation um, than just writing documentation, or we do a lot of release notes. So now we're also known as the team that publishes these reports that a lot more people see a lot more often than the other things that we produced. Um, and a big benefit is these reports don't take much extra time or work. I mean, we're talking half an hour to an hour total. Um, it boosts the profile, obviously, kind of like of the technical writer, so we're not just seen as the team that just does some documentation. Um, it has expanded, I mentioned, in some other areas and reports, like that client, that yellow client report was a direct, um, almost brother report to this one, for only a few extra more minutes of work. And as it was mentioned kind of in the chat, is that it's really helped us connect with a lot of the other teams and stay visible and also connect with our clients. And Kieran that's a good point for Agile. Yeah, something like this where you're regularly trying to do reports and updates would be an extremely good use case. So that's an excellent point. So we'll move on to the next slide, please. So yay. So basically, it's kind of a win-win-win in a lot of ways. People are informed about what's going on. They don't have to ask about it. They're always kept in the loop. People that didn't necessarily know about it before are aware of the documentation. Clients are happy because they're always current and know when things are updated. That's been a big boost, and the people that support those clients also are aware of what's happening. And yeah, it's really kind of been a nice surprise on this extra bit of reporting and delivering things directly to people and kind of taking out the middleman and supporting others to get it published regularly has had a lot of advantages. We'll move on to the next slide, please. So kind of just we'll take as kind of we wind down, what do you guys think about this? Is this something that you kind of, have you had similar, problems? Can you see producing something like this? I kind of definitely encourage people to try to take a little bit more active in getting their work out there and letting people know about it because, it really helps them do our work, and what we do is help other people. And the more up to date and current they are about it, the better everybody is and the happier everyone is. Um, and I think it saves a lot of time for a very small investment. I'll just pause for a moment and, kind of give you guys an opportunity. We'll check the chat. Analytics. Um, We don't track that information now. It's a good question as far as knowing what kind of hits and having reports on access to the file. That could be an area we look into later, but really our goal is kind of to just make sure, kind of make sure it's like delivering the paper, make sure it gets on people's doorsteps. It seems that everyone's picking it up and reading them. Um, Sometimes no news and no feedback is just as good as good feedback, because usually, as you guys may be aware, that usually if there's a complaint, you'll hear it, but if people are happy, you don't hear anything. So we've gotten some compliments, but also a lot of just people are just taking it for granted and appreciating the extra information. And yeah, Kieran, this is especially, like I said, our team does a lot in documentation, and a lot of that information is very timely. People want to know the minute that something is available for them and to get the information towards release notes and other documentation. So yes, that's the more timely your content is and critical for people to do their jobs, I think the more benefit you can get from doing things like this on a regular basis. Just kind of monitor the chat for a moment. Which tool do we use to build this report? Honestly, we do it. I do it in Outlook. I build it in Outlook. All it is really is inserting the graphic, and then I just copy and paste from recent emails, update some of the links, as most of this goes all to the same place. What's nice about that is for the audience is a very consistent experience. The report looks the same, it works similarly, it takes them to the same locations. So it also trains people, and they start seeing these reports to know where to look for stuff. It reminds them the content is available and going out there. So that's kind of one of the added side benefits, but it's a very simple, I do it in Outlook. And then to archive and save and make PDFs, what I do is I just copy and paste from the Outlook into a Word file and then save that as PDF for the archive version. So that's a very good question, Rama. I'll pause just a moment and then we'll start. Again, I appreciate you guys joining today and everything else. So let's move on to the next slide, please. So we're kind of hitting the end here. I'll just kind of open it up for a few minutes to see if you guys have other questions. Just let everybody know. We'll probably update the website, the STC India website, with a link to some of this and the description, and I'll make sure I provide some links to a couple of those sample reports. I'll show my email in a moment. You can email me if you want a copy of the slides for yourself, and I will probably post them to SlideShare a little bit later. We'll share that link as well. So we'll hold for just a moment for other questions. Otherwise, we can move to the next slide. We'll just have a couple wrap-up slides, please. So again, just kind of what the background is, if you want to read this kind of more as a story with a little bit more detail about what this is, it's available. It was published in the October 2015 edition of Intercom. So that was the main article there. So this is really kind of highlights and a little more explanation of this story. We can go to the next slide. So again, I want to thank everybody. It doesn't look like we have any more questions. I know you guys have a big holiday, Republic Day, coming up, so I wanted to wish you guys a happy holiday. Enjoy your time and day off. And I'm TechCom Todd at Gmail. You can find me on LinkedIn under TechCom Todd or Todd DeLuca. I'd like to keep in touch. It's a pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. On behalf of the STC India chapter, I want to tell you that this was very informative, a lot of information. Also, thank you to all the participants. They asked lot of nice questions, lot of information, informative discussions we had. I have recorded the webinar, and I will try to see that I can upload it to on the STC India channel. I will share a link with also you, Todd, so that you can also share it in your social media channels. And if you have any questions, please make sure to type it in the chat box. And
thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Just wish me luck. I have to bundle up and clear snow to take the dog out, so I got to go put more wood on the fire. But thank you. I'm glad everything worked out. I appreciate your patience during our delay. So it's been a pleasure. I hope we had the opportunity to converse and talk again in the future.
Excellent, Todd. Thank you. Excellent, Todd. Thank you so much, everyone. And I will try to share the recording and the presentation no sooner I'm able to upload it. Thank you once again for your time, and we look forward to the next webinar with you. And once again, a happy Republic Day to all of you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.